Well, hello. Welcome.
Hi.
Episode 5, in progress.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk mental health. A couple of my very good friends, Bri and Mark. Why don't you give the people a sentence or two just to let them know who you are?
100%. So, my name's Mark.
Mm-hmm.
I work at a go-kart place.
Let's go, baby.
Which is pretty cool.
Come on.
And yeah, I've been coming to this church since I was a little tacker.
That's true.
And this is my partner, Brianna.
Yeah, I'm Brianna. I've been coming to the Rocks for about 5-6 years now. I'm a support worker, a high care disability support worker. So it's good fun. So I feel like I would bring a lot of background information to the mental health side of things.
Okay.
Not just my own experience.
Oh, bit of a flex there.
100%.
I see that.
Yeah.
Okay, normally we start with some icebreakers, but I thought it'd be fun today if we played a game.
Let's do it.
Because we're halfway through the first season now. So, like, people might be getting like, hey, come on, change it up. So I thought,
Go for
All right,
it.
today we're going to play an extra bonus round of rapid fire, courtesy of ChatGPT.
Cool.
It's called This or That Self-Care Edition.
Woo.
Okay, so I'm going to give you two options,
Mm.
and you need to respond with your option, like as soon as it comes to mind. Okay?
Gotcha.
All right.
And sorry, do we take turns or
I
just
think
rapid fire?
rapid fire.
Okay.
If I'm interested, we'll discuss further.
Cool.
Okay, question 1. Bubble bath or a forest walk?
Forest walk.
Forest walk.
Oh, okay, interesting. Therapist or trusted friend?
Trusted friend.
Oh, okay. Jeez. They're not a licensed counselor, you know that, right? Okay, mine.
Yeah.
Why have I got you on the mental health?
Does the
one?
job.
That's exactly why.
Journaling or worship music?
Worship
Worship music.
Oh, sleeping in or getting up early for quiet time?
Sleeping in.
Both of you sleeping in. It's true. Digital detox or binging a feel-good show?
Binging a feel-good show.
I feel like binging is like what like is like that is like the first thought, but I feel like binging. But like the detox is better.
Ooh.
Like, you know what I mean?
So
Like-
your moralism says, "Oh, I should do the detox," but your heart says, "Give me
Yeah.
some Gilmore Girls."
Yeah.
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 100%.
Yeah.
Pretty
Would you be
much.
Gilmore Girls? Would that
Yes.
be?
Yeah. I watch it like once a year.
No way. There you go. Okay.
Just
okay.
that intro song is just like stuck in the head.
Yeah.
This is controversial. I've never
Mm.
actually watched an episode of Gilmore Girls.
Mm.
I feel I've watched Friends like maybe 2 to 4 times through,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but I'm older than you, so you know.
But Friends
that is
Friends
true.
isn't actually funny though. They just add like the laugh track, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Ooh.
controversial?
That is now that
I
is
feel
a
like-
generational
I feel like-
statement.
I feel like have you seen those videos where they just like
Cut
they
the laughs.
take
Yeah.
the laughs out of it and it just
Yeah.
does not feel
On the laugh track, so this is a little bit dark, but have you ever
Mm.
thought about the fact, so those laugh tracks, when they
Mm.
were originally used
Mm.
in the 90s, right, were actually recorded in the 80s.
Yeah.
So already, like when you start watching that in the thousands, most of those people are already dead.
Damn.
Oh, cool.
So now you're like watching Friends and it's like
Yeah.
dead people laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes it worse.
It
Makes
does.
it even less
Hey
funny.
man,
Yeah.
this is awesome, man. We're
This is a good
starting
start.
this
So
one.
you still want to binge a feel good show? You still on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Silent retreat or a group hangout?
Group hangout. For
Silent
sure.
retreat for
Ooh,
sure.
The silence?
Yeah.
Just being by yourself. That's chill.
Terrifying.
terrifying.
Wow.
Being alone in my thoughts. Please no. Sabbath nap or Sabbath hike?
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sabbath hike.
Sabbath nap.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
I don't know. Nap,
Interesting.
nap just feels weird. It's like you would take a nap to feel refreshed, but I don't know about you. I always feel like whenever I wake up from a nap, I feel like worse. Like
Crushed.
I feel
I
Yeah.
feel the same with a hike. I feel like the intention's good, but once you finish, you've gotten lost 5
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
and you just want to get to your car.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
you've probably
That's
fought
fair.
with the people with you as well.
yeah.
In the hike? So you would fight with someone on a hike?
Oh, well, I try not to.
But in your experience of hiking, every time
Yeah.
it's turned into a fight.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
fight about? Like long-term issues that have been simmering below the surface?
No, it's
Or
more
like-
so like the direction we're going, and the person with me will be like, "Oh, let's
Yeah.
just go this little bit further." I'm like, "Let's
Yeah.
turn around right now." And head
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Breath prayer or scripture memorization?
What prayer?
Breath prayer?
Breath
What is
prayer.
breath
Ask
prayer?
ChatGPT. I don't know. Now, breath prayer is like when you like slow down and you just focus on your like breathing in and out and try to really just focus on
And then what was the other option?
scripture memorization.
Scripture memorization.
Let's be vulnerable. You ever done either?
No, but I feel like I'm more inclined to give breath, prayer, a go.
Yeah.
They
That
both
sounds
feel
like
like work.
something.
like you know,
What, breathing? Oh, yeah. This one's real hard.
but like focusing on it. Yeah, I guess that one. That seems more chill. But like memorizing, I feel like that's like
They both seem like work. One of them is literally breathing.
yeah,
Oh,
well,
I don't know about that. That seems a bit stiff.
Horrible.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Aromatherapy or hot coffee?
Hot coffee.
Aromatherapy.
Interesting. Cry it out or laugh it off?
Depends on the day.
Oh, okay.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, laugh it out.
Laugh it out, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Psalm 23 or Philippians 4:6-7?
Philippians.
Arms.
For context here, Psalm 23 is the Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah.
I shall not want, all that one. And then Philippians 4:6-7 is Paul saying, I will not be anxious in anything.
Yeah. I only
So-
I knew Philippians because I was looking at the
Because you're looking at the
content
notes
beforehand.
before.
yeah, that's you got stitched up there.
All right, guided meditation or spontaneous prayer?
Spontaneous prayer.
Spontaneous prayer.
Nature journal or a gratitude list?
Gratitude list.
Yeah, gratitude list.
Yeah. Solo worship in your car, communal worship in church?
Ah, Oh.
Church.
I feel like both is good.
The irony that you play on the worship team and you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
It's
no,
funny.
it's still good, but like I
If
don't
you
know.
had the choice.
There is something about like, well, on the worship team, I'm like drumming,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't want anyone to hear like my bad singing. But in the car, I can like scream that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like as loud as possible.
Yeah. In the words of Angels Hutanto,
Mm.
singing in the car hits different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally would lean to communal.
Mm.
I don't mind it though. All right. And the last one, social media fast or food fast?
Social media
Social
fast.
media fast.
I'm glad
yeah.
we're all on the same page there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Mm.
Fantastic. So we're talking about mental health. That was fun. That was more fun than any other intro I've done so far. So
Cool.
wish I thought of that
So
sooner.
we're winning so far, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, everything is a competition.
Yeah.
Let's talk about performance anxiety.
Yeah.
So mental health, what's kind of like, if you were to just give me your like, if someone said to you, hey, like, what's your thoughts on mental health?
Mm.
Broad umbrella thing. Where do you go? What's your thinking?
I think that mental health for everyone is complex,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think it's the same for every individual person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very broad, very deep, very complicated.
Yes.
100%. I think it's like, for me personally, like individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there are some people who are either like affected by like something like some sort of like chemical imbalance or like maybe like trauma in the past. But then I think for like other people, like, or even for like my own experiences, where like sometimes you just like get caught in like a cycle, like there's not even necessarily anything that's like wrong.
Yeah.
It could just be like bad thinking patterns. And I think
For
that's
sure.
what makes it so complex, is that like for every person it's different from how it started and like where it's going.
It's an interesting thing, right? Like what I think exactly what you're both saying. It's complex, it's complicated, it is unique. I feel like it's a very interesting cultural moment though, because it kind of seems to be like almost blanket fixes of like, well, if you just do this, it'll fix your problem. And it's like, well, that might be a good like general principle, but like in reality, there's an individual person here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating. So you guys have both had a bit of a journey with mental health. Gonna just put you right on the spot. Could you share as much or as little as you'd be willing to share in kind of your journey when it comes to this phenomenal cultural buzzword, mental health?
100%. Yeah, I think for myself, towards like the end of school, like kind of getting wrapped up in like some negative like thought patterns. I was like a support person for someone who was going through like a tough time like mentally themselves, and like after like a while of that happening, like over like a year or two, like then that started kind of like affecting me and just like making things like, I don't know, just kind of like wanting to be there for that person, but then kind of getting like sucked in and like involved and like starting to think the same way that they did. Then it started like impacting me quite a lot. and like suffered with like a lot of like anxiety from that. Again, I don't think I experienced any sort of like chemical imbalance or any like trauma. It was purely just like a bad cycle that I'd like gotten myself in, and kind of like always tried to work through that like over the past couple of years by like asking myself like, what do I actually want? Surrounding myself with like a good group of people and talking them through that, just to kind of help dig myself out of that hole.
It's a really difficult one, right? Because on the one hand, you're like, you want to be there for your friend, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to sacrifice for you because you're like my friend or whatever. Then at the same time, there does come a point where if you are not managing yourself, right, it can become pretty hectic.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like my mental health journey has been a long one, but a good one. So I've got been diagnosed with GAD, so generalized anxiety disorder, and panic disorder. So I have just spontaneous panic attacks, which is really fun.
When you say spontaneous, you mean like this is not predictable?
Yeah,
like
just
you'll just be
out of nowhere.
Wow.
I'll be having the best day, and then all of a sudden just like cannot breathe, cannot see, cannot hear.
No way.
Yeah, it's really, really scary. And I guess I've always struggled with anxiety, but it wasn't until year 12 that I realised that not everyone feels this way. I actually had to be kept home from school for 2 weeks because I had a stress-induced rash, and my doctor was like, your cortisol levels are extremely high. Please go get help.
Wow.
And so, got diagnosed, started taking medication, which was a journey in itself. Medication is different for every person. Started seeing a therapist. I mean, I'm not cured, but it's...
Even that word though, right? Let's talk about that word.
Yeah.
Okay. let's get right into the weeds. Cured. Is it possible?
I personally don't think so. I believe it can get better.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a roller coaster. I think you can be doing well for a long time, and then all of a sudden you can crash and you'll feel the lowest of lows. But then the next day you might be perfectly fine again. It might get easier over time with coping mechanisms in place. But I don't know of anyone myself who has been cured of any mental health issue that they're suffering.
And I actually reckon it's a misunderstanding because it's mental health, right? And I think even now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could have outdated information, but we're not even calling it mental illness anymore. Now we're calling it mental ill health, right? Because like, let's say that you are a normal human being who's operating, living in the world. We would say there's maybe a healthy eating pattern and an unhealthy eating pattern, right? We're not going to be like, have you been cured of your addiction to McDonald's? It's like, no, I mean, come on, man. Macca's is freaking awesome all the time.
Amen.
Right? But I'm for my own good. I am not like, and I think we need to correct that language of like,
Absolutely.
no, we're not going to be cured of this. This is an ongoing. Yeah. Because I think my journey is somewhat similar. It's very interesting actually having the three of us on this because when I was in year 12, I got like hopelessly depressed, like, you know, like walked around for like 9 months with like a cloud over my head. And for me, I had a miraculous encounter with God, which really felt like that weight got lifted off my shoulders. And like for a long time, I thought that was my moment of like, that's my conversion. I think it was only a couple of months later when I kind of actually said, yeah, cool, I'll follow Jesus. I was very shocked, I think, when like a year later, what shall appear?
Yeah.
But this, wait, hang on, I got rid of that. I was, that was gone. Why is that back again?
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling hopeless and like nothing matters. And I just think like it's such a difficult thing because I don't know about the same for you guys, right? But I almost had an existential crisis where I'm like, wait, no, this was gone.
Yeah.
What? And now it's back. Like, what's that journey been like? Like you were saying, you have like good days, you have bad days. Like, what's that roller coaster like, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like the highs are so high. You're like, yes, I'm doing so well. Thank you, God. Amazing. And then you have one of those really bad days and you're like, I was doing so well. I thought I had the best coping mechanisms in place. Why can't I just figure this out? But I think in finding God, I know that he's traveling along with me. And it's not like the bad days, he's deserted me. He's feeling them with me. And the bad days aren't as bad as they were before I met God. And because he's there with me and he's helping me through it. He's not going to cure it. He's not going to be able to fix the imbalance in my brain, but he's gonna help me and give me the skills and the love to get through it.
Very good.
100%. And I think like the people that you surround yourself with are like super important.
Yeah.
Like as well, like it's like, I don't know, for us, like small group is always good. Where like we get to like meet up, thankfully, like in your house every week, and and if there's like anything that's like pressing on your mind, because a lot of the time, like even though this might come out of nowhere, like it doesn't always just last for like a day, like a couple of hours.
It's true.
Like it could be like a week or like a couple of weeks, and so it's like always good just to kind of like talk it out, and kind of like put it out there. But yeah, I think it's like super like unreasonable to think that like as like a believer that like that stuff that you're immune from, like you know what I mean. So yeah,
and I think it can be a little bit dangerous, right? Because sometimes people will be like, hey, I'm wrestling with this, and then people get shut down because it's like, well, have you prayed about it? It's like, well, surprise, yes, I have. Like this deep cry of my soul, I have actually extended to the Lord, and it would seem that there is no answer forthcoming. So it is, I think it can be so toxic, because I think it's like I don't think it's coming from a bad place, right? I think it's coming from a good place of like, if he can heal physically, which we have seen that happen, then surely he can heal mentally. And I think we have seen it happen. I think there are stories of people that have had like that kind of healing and then it has not come back. But again, it's like one of those things that doesn't seem to happen all the time for whatever reason. And so we can't make that like the normative principle of like, oh, okay, well I just want to come back a little bit to the cycle thing. So I was seeing a counselor last year for some other stuff, and what ended up coming out of this part of was basically like, I find myself, and I don't know if yours is as regular as this, but I would go like every 3 to 4 weeks there and thereabouts, I start to get down like a big path of disillusionment. Like life doesn't matter. Nothing I'm doing is like worth doing. I'm a bad husband. I'm a bad father. I'm bad at my job. Like, you know, I kind of like then crumble. And then like a week later, I'm like, dude, life's great. Why are people not more positive? But I'm talking to my counselor about it, and he was saying that, and I've not got a diagnosis, but he was saying like that's a pretty common thing with ADHD,
right?
Which I found very interesting. Of like, it seems to be a common cycle. Just wondering what it's been like for you guys. Is it like a regular thing of like you can kind of predict it? Where you're like, oh yeah, it's been about a month, probably about to crash, or like what? Or maybe you can't predict it, and then you realize once you're in it, and you're like, oh, I see what's happening.
Yeah, I feel like for me, there's like warnings. It's not a cycle, but there are warning signs that I just don't see. And then when I do have a panic attack, or when I've got a day where I'm just very anxious, I'm like, the stuff throughout the week or throughout these last couple of days, they're adding up and they're making sense. And so for me, I think it's not so much of a cycle, but it's just about recognizing specific warning signs. Yeah.
And has that gotten better for you over time? Of like being able to go, no, okay, that's
Not
a
at
no.
all.
That's
Nah. I wish I could say yes, but it's just like every time, like even with family now, they've started to recognize changes, and then I'll tell them like, hey, I'm feeling super anxious today, and they're like, yep. Like we can see that coming. Which is tough in itself, because it's like, well, how come they can see it and I can't see it and notice it and do anything to change it or to make it better?
Yeah, well, sometimes I feel like you almost become like not just you, sorry, but like anyone that struggles with like mental health just becomes like a passenger, like through some of those points. Like you can even be like recognized and be aware of like what's going on and like the warning signs and stuff, and then it hits you, and then you could know and still be living through it, and like it doesn't feel like you can do anything.
And it's hard, right? It's like, I reckon that is what is hard about the mental health thing, because other people can see it in you sometimes when you can't see it in yourself, but you're so trapped in this kind of world of like, that's all I can kind of see around me. It's, you guys seen Inside Out too?
Yes. Yeah, we actually went to go see it with my little sister.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it for a sec? We watched it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I think Inside Out, the first one, I think that is one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. Again, only watched like 3 weeks ago. But Inside Out 2, I thought was a fascinating way to kind of visually represent what's going on. But would love your guys. Did you guys enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. I think it's the scene where Riley is playing hockey and she's like been taken off the ice.
She like shoulder charges someone, right?
Yeah, she gets put in the sin
and then
bin.
she has an anxiety attack, and that, I mean, I don't think everyone has a panic attack the same way, but that did a very good job of showing what it is like to be in one and how you kind of, even though it could have happened 1,000 times to you in the past, every single panic attack feels like the first one ever, and it's just as scary
Wow.
as the last one. And it was so good to have like something to say, this is what it feels like, and it's a kids movie. And I think it's helped, especially like Lucia, my sister. She's been able to recognize those feelings as well now in herself, and she can relate and talk about it a lot better. So I think like Inside Out, the whole like franchise is just super, super good for mental health, for kids, for adults, for everyone. Yeah, I think they've done it really well.
100%. And like one of the things that I took away from like the anxiety character in Inside Out 2 was like when they first got there, like into the mind of Riley, was like how they framed themselves. That was like, oh no, like we need to do this so that like life is better for Riley.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like a lot of the time that's the way that it starts. It's like, no, we actually have to be stressed or worried about this because it's like for our own good. And then over time that develops into something that is actually like quite dangerous, like for yourself. Like it's almost like that like rise and grind, like for example, like for me, I see it in the like rise and grind culture of like today. It's like, oh, you have to be like worried about getting your life together by the time that you're in your 20s, or you have to do this and do that by this time. And then all of a sudden it like becomes destructive like after a while.
Yeah, I think we actually talked about it on another episode, but the idea of like the winner's script. I think I'm pretty sure on this towards the end of last year, right? But it is this idea of like nail primary school, go to inner school, go to PAC, then get into a good high school. You like make sure you get an ATAR, and if you don't get an ATAR, you better get a trade, and then go to uni, get the right degree. Once you got the degree, get married, get a dope spouse, make sure that they're as dope as you, and then go and earn a bunch of money, have beautiful children, and make them do exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you're 15 and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I've got to do in the next 5 years. Like that is extremely overwhelming. I just think so unhelpful, right? So unhelpful. All right, what do you guys reckon about then? Okay, so we've said all this. Paul in Philippians 4:6-7 says, therefore, do not be anxious about anything. Shall we discuss this controversy?
Just don't be anxious, bro.
Oh.
Just have you tried that?
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Done.
So, I mean, I'm caricaturing it a little bit, right? Because people pluck verses like that. So I was talking to someone recently who basically was talking through something that they'd gone through as a child, where they'd grown up in a Christian home. And basically, anytime anything went wrong, mum would just like quote a Bible verse. You know, like, well, the Bible says this. So, and then therefore, he could never really express kind of what he was feeling. I think that this is, I'll get to my thoughts on it in a second. What do you guys think when you read something like that, where you've got a Bible verse that says, do not be anxious, in your own experience of then feeling anxious, what's your kind of emotional response, if you're being honest?
I think that if someone said that, or like went to quote that verse, like with that context, just like, hey, just like don't be anxious, I think that would be quite like offensive, or just like would be like a bit ignorant. I think like personally, my thoughts on that verse is that it's not him being like, just don't be anxious, bro. I think it's more so like, don't be like comfortable like living in that, like it's almost like a warning, or like try and recognize to not be stressed or worried, but it's not saying that, like it's not saying just don't do that, like it's a choice. Yeah,
I agree. I think when I think of that verse, I think of it as not a command, and more so just like don't be anxious. And then I think in my head, because God's with you, like
Very good.
the anxiety is still going to be there and you still will feel anxious,
Mm.
but the Lord doesn't want you to be anxious, but when you are, he'll be there with you.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I think when I think of that verse. But yeah, super unhelpful when you are already in the midst of anxiety and someone says, hey, don't be anxious. Or they just
You ever
quote,
tried
yeah,
just not?
yeah,
Cheers, bro. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I find it fascinating because in Philippians chapter 2, same letter, Paul talks about his own wrestles with anxiety. And so it's like, he then spends those middle 2 chapters basically talking about the wonder and the beauty of God. And he's like, so therefore, do not be anxious because this God is with you, which is basically what you kind of articulated. And I think this is the danger sometimes where like we want to be people that honor the Bible and believe the Bible, but we do like lazy Bible study where we just pluck stuff and we go, well, it's right there. So like the classic is like Jesus, one of his ones that he repeats the most is like, therefore do not worry. It's like, so yeah, why are you worrying? It's like, yes, but he put a lot of other context around that. It was a therefore do not worry. So he had a whole bunch of stuff before that.
Yeah.
And it's not like we mentally disagree. It's like, yeah, I agree. I don't want to be anxious. It's
Yeah,
not
no.
like I'm loving it. But I also think it's an identity statement, right? Because sometimes we like the label. Right? Like, let's talk about that. Controversial. Do you like the label? Do you like to tell people I got anxiety?
I don't like telling people that, but I also think in certain spaces, it's a really helpful tool to be like, I struggle with anxiety or depression or whatever it may be, so that other people can understand you. Like when I'm anxious, I'll just start saying crazy stuff like, wait, no, we can't go through like the shopping center door at this time because there are too many people in there. So let's just do a lap of the shops and then we'll go back in. And to everyone else, it's like, that's psychotic. That's crazy.
You're crazy. Yeah.
But then when I explain, sorry, like I'm just feeling really anxious about it right now. I just need to do something to calm me down. It's a really good tool. But then there's some people that don't understand anxiety or mental health issues at all. And so saying that is just a bit redundant.
In some ways, it might actually make it worse, right? Because then they kind of
Yes.
double down on you.
Yeah, they're like, well, it's not a real thing, so it's anxiety. Like it's all in your head anyways. It's not an actual reason why you can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like labels, as you said, are like helpful to like communicate that to other people, like what you're feeling or what you might be thinking, like a very simplified, generalized way. I think that it helps some people who have those labels for themselves, like kind of help them understand what they're going through. But I think it's important that no one should feel defined by that label.
Absolutely.
Like just because
Very
you
good.
feel anxious doesn't mean that you are necessarily like an anxious like person or you know what I mean? Like it's like at the end of the day, like that isn't necessarily you. Like you
Absolutely.
are a person who may be suffered or like more like affected by that. But like don't let it define like who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. It's
For
like
sure.
if we were to take the health language further, it's like you wouldn't define yourself. Like this is super uncouth in our current culture, right? But no one would say, "Oh, I'm a fat person." Like it's like like no one is going to say that as like an identity statement when it comes to that sort of thing. But when it comes to mental health, I think sometimes we like to label ourselves almost as like a badge of maybe who we are or whatever. It can be, and I think it can become dangerous because like, I think it ends up just not being 100% true. I think it is something that you experience and it is something that you deal with, but it's not your whole life.
Absolutely. I think being a support worker, I see a lot of people say, well, I can't do that because I've got anxiety, or I can't leave the house today because I'm feeling depressed. And that's absolutely true. And some days with depression, you don't want to get out of bed, but they will use that not as an excuse. I hate that word, but using that as a barrier and just saying, I have depression, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
To just refuse help or just say, well, this is just the way I am. So
Yeah.
Can you double click on that? How do you navigate that as a support worker? Because it's a weird situation, right? Because you are employed technically by them to support them.
yeah, it is. It does get very tricky. And I think it, again, because mental health is so different for everyone, it's just about forming that rapport with your client and then understanding what their limits are. So, you know, for one of my clients, I might be like, oh, okay, like, do you want to talk about it? I'll like go put the kettle on. Like, how can I best support you? We won't worry about, you know, going to the pool today or going to the shops today. But do you need to talk about it? Other clients, I'll just be like, oh, are you okay? And then they'll be like, yeah, I'm just depressed. And I'll be like, oh, can I go to the shops for you and get you dinner for tonight? Or how about we just watch a movie and put a movie on? Because talking about it with certain clients will make them feel worse, and they will just downward spiral, where other clients you just pivot and adjust based on how they're feeling on the particular day.
Understand. And yeah, do you also feel that like as a pastor, because like for you, like similar to support work, like you're ministering and like helping a lot of people, do you feel like that there are some labels that you can't have while also having that label as a pastor? Like you're not allowed to feel anxious or feel certain ways?
Great question. I don't think so. I think we're actually in a very exciting time, I think, in like I don't know what our thing is called, Western church, evangelical church, like, I don't know, people that preach Jesus, you know, that type of church. I think we're actually in a really exciting place, because I think what is coming more and more to the fore is like radical vulnerability. And we are globally, I think, developing more of a leadership culture of vulnerability. Great example of this would be, I'm preaching on this on Sunday, actually. And I've been trying to work out how to introduce the topic. And in the end, I'm just going to go super vulnerable of like a parenting mistake I made on Monday night. This is great. So you guys came over on Monday night for small group. And the boys were super overtired. They need to go to bed at 6:30. And I hadn't prepared for young adults. So I'm like, get them to bed at 6:30 and then I'll knock out my like research. So I'm like on my laptop on the couch doing the research. The boys keep coming out of their room. And I'm like full yelling at them, like, get back in bed. Now I'm going to go back to studying the Bible. You know, like, get back in bed. And then I'm going to go back to studying the Bible.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I reckon 20 years ago, you could not have a pastor say, hey, I'm impatient and I'm angry and I'm working on it with the Lord. Like, you could not say that 20 years ago. I think now in the modern world, that is becoming more and more of the need to basically say, hey, I am not perfect. I'm not content with my sin. I'm not content with some of the worst parts of me, but I know 100% I am loved by the God of the universe. Absolutely. And this to me is actually groundbreaking, that I am loved even in that moment, that I'm falling short as a parent and prioritizing the wrong thing. I am actually still loved by my God in heaven. And the reason I tell all of that as a long story is, I think, again, 20 years ago, if a pastor came out and said, hey, I struggle with depression or I'm feeling anxious, people would have like, how the heck can you lead a church? Whereas now I think it is actually something, it's like, no, it's a pretty real thing when it comes to leading anything. Like, I feel anxious. Literally, I said this on Sunday. I feel anxious most Sundays. I'm like, is anyone ever going to come back? Like, it could be next Sunday no one comes back and that's it. We've got to close the doors. Like, that's a real fear for me in my humanness. I think obviously I can quote the Bible verses back to myself. Doesn't help. It's like, yeah.
I feel like it's like it almost makes it more like relatable though, because it's like, I feel like in today's day and age, like with connection and how it is, like you want like a human connection. Like if someone feels like you are like above human, like you're perfect or like, at least like almost perfect, like then that creates like a disconnect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it also creates a worse problem in the sense that you accidentally become the Messiah.
Yeah.
So then everyone looks to like, oh, this pastor is amazing. When I grow up, I want to be like them. It's like, oh, no. When you grow up, you want to be like Jesus.
Yes.
It's like you don't want to be like Alistair, trust me.
Yeah, I think it allows people also to come to you or just to talk about things that they're struggling with. I think the more people assume that, oh, you know, my pastor's perfect and, you know, he's so great at what he does, they're going to feel even more guilt about the things that they're struggling with and they're going to hide it more, and then that's just going to lead to worse choices that they make.
Definitely.
But if they feel like, oh, well, my pastor can talk about, parenting mistakes, then, I can talk to my pastor, or I can talk to my small group about how I've been a bad parent this week as well.
Yeah. But great question, Mark. Very good. I've lost my notes here. I don't even know where we are right now. This is great conversation. But I do feel like there was content in here I want to. Oh, yes. I've written it down because I knew I would have forgotten. Contrast Paul's anxiety with his joy in Philippians. He was anxious, 2:28, but still said, be anxious for nothing. So, why have I said that? I don't even understand my own notes, guys. I'm sorry. I've just derailed this whole conversation.
Oh, we're chilling.
How do we hold space for tension in Scripture, and what does that teach us about grace in struggle? That's what I wanted to get to. Very good, very good. Grace in struggle. Sorry, can I fully form my thought now?
Yes,
from my own
course.
dot points that I've forgotten? Basically, I think that commandment, I quote unquote that, I did air quotes for anyone listening online, is do not be anxious. It sounds like a commandment because there's no grace there, right? It basically is like follow the rules. Just wondering, like, what are your guys' thoughts on, like, because grace can accidentally sometimes become enablement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just wondering where do you sit?
It is a very fine, fuzzy line, isn't it? I think, especially with support work, you don't want to enable people, but you're also not there to strong arm people into, you have to, if you're feeling depressed today, no, we have to continue, we have to go to your swimming lesson, sorry. But you don't want to be like, oh, you're depressed today? That's fine, we just won't go. And then that happens every week, and then they're not meeting their goals. And then instead of you helping them and you supporting them through their depression to be able to achieve their goal of going to hydro or whatever it may be, you're just enabling them to feel worse and worse, and they probably feel more alone because it's like, oh, this person just doesn't want to go to the pool with me. They just want to say, yep, no worries, so you don't need support at the pool. I'm just going to go home early then. So yeah, it does get very hard between, you don't want to enable someone, but you want to be there for them to support them and give them grace through what they're feeling.
Definitely. I think you said it great. It's a fine, fuzzy line because I think we can sometimes misunderstand grace as acceptance of like, oh, that's great. Just thanks for telling me. And then like, see you next week. It's like, but we do need to like actually remember you've got a bigger vision. You've got something else that you want to be able to do. And it's great that you're here right now and we're going to accept that and we're going to sit in it and we're going to sit in the pain. But also let's be reminded of where ultimately we do want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which I feel like is easier to talk about when you're talking about other people and your relationship with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clock that.
But but it becomes harder when instead of you giving grace to someone else, it's God giving you grace, because you might be stuck in that like, God, like, why have I been left with these thoughts? Why have I been left in this situation? And realize that like he's not always gonna just take away everything, like all the difficult stuff, and there's probably like some learning and some growth in that struggle.
Big time.
Through that grace.
Even Paul, right? Paul himself says that we don't know what the thorn is, but he talks about like this thorn in the side that he can never kind of get rid of, even though he's asked to God so many times, please get rid of it. And it doesn't seem to be able to go away. Some people would say it was depression. So like that's a pretty common theory, total theory. But like it is that thing of like, but then there's just that weird grace that God says, I love you anyway, despite that brokenness, despite that imperfection. Do you reckon there's any guilt attached to mental health?
I think so. For the person feeling the mental health? Yeah, absolutely. Especially as a Christian, when you're feeling depressed or you're feeling anxious, you're not gonna glorify God in that week or that day or whatever it may be, and you might think, oh, I've not been. Or, it might be really difficult for you to throw your worries to God and, pray and talk to him and ask him for help. You might even completely not forget about him, but just put him in a corner until you're feeling good again. And then you're going to go to church and you're going to worship and you're going to pray. So I think there is guilt attached to mental health, especially if you're a Christian.
Can we just come back I know that I said at the beginning you can't be negative, but I disagree. I think with what you said there of like when you're in that state, then you can't glorify God. I think I think is where the problem comes in, because I think we think this is a bad emotion, this is a bad feeling, this is not honoring. Now I feel guilty because if anyone finds out, or if God finds out.
Yeah.
But I think what's fascinating in Scripture is that God is glorified all the time, no matter what. Just for the simple fact that we exist. Right?
Yeah.
He takes joy in his creation. And so 100% he is not joyful that we are depressed or anxious or anything like that, but he is joyful that we are his children.
Yeah.
And just the fact that we exist, he loves us, which I find very profound, because I think that's part of the problem, is that we think, oh, I'm not good enough to come to the throne, or I'm not good enough to come to God in prayer, or whatever it is. But in reality, it doesn't matter, because we'll never be good enough.
Absolutely.
The beauty of it is that Jesus was good enough, and he opens the door for us.
So good.
Let's talk about Jesus actually for a sec on emotions. That guy, that old chestnut. Again, this is an interesting one. You guys haven't done emotionally healthy relationships or anything yet, but there's like a misnomer, I think, in the church that like, Jesus is not on board the emotion train. It's like we're all quite stoic. There's commandments, do the commandments, live the life, greater purpose, all that stuff, which obviously we all agree with. But what do you think about like Jesus and emotion? You guys ever thought about it much?
Can't say I have.
I think the like first ideal, or like the first image of Jesus that like pops up in my head like is emotionless. But like when you like go through his like life, and it helps that we've been like studying it like recently, like him being in the temple and being like just so angry at like the way that the people were being like extorted and flipping over the tables. Like Jesus had to crash out, like like Jesus like had
it's real emotion, right?
Righteous anger in that moment, or before he gets taken to the cross and like cry, like sweating blood while praying, like God, like please don't let this.
Which is a real condition attached to cortisol. It's an anxiety-induced problem. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
It's real. Yeah. You're like the capillaries in your forehead burst because your blood pressure's so high.
Far out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he was probably a guy of like intense like emotion at times, and I think that
it's the shortest verse in the whole Bible is Jesus wept.
Yeah.
Like when Lazarus, his best friend, dies, just weeps. Like, when's the last time you saw a man weep? Like a grown man.
Yeah.
In front of all of his friends, just genuinely break down crying. Imagine that happening at church. Like some of those, some of these big fellas that we've got, just, cracking out the tears.
Far out.
That'd be powerful, man.
It's quite a crazy like sight to think about.
And then I think you add on that he is God.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in Christian circles we think emotions are evil or bad, but actually I think they're at the core of what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's because emotions obviously then they are not the fuel for our mental health, but they impact our mental health, right? So, All right, should we talk some common misconceptions? All right. What about strong faith means no anxiety or no burnout?
Yeah, just not the case.
No.
Not the case.
Not the case.
No.
I think we'll read.
Actually, sorry. Can we talk
No,
about
of
this?
course.
Because we kind of already talked about this. Burnout. Can we talk about this actually?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Bri giving a pointed nod. All right, I'm about to cop it right here as Mark's pastor.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Burnout.
How would you define burnout? Let's define it first and then we'll talk further.
I think burnout to me is where if your life or your energy was a cup of water, you're pouring out more than what you're putting in. And once that starts getting low or empty, that's what burnout would be.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful imagery.
That's
Very
great.
Cool. Yeah.
Very good. That's a good reel.
Yeah.
I'll remember that.
Say
for-
that. Yeah. And I think like personally, like experienced that with like a bunch of things. Like I'm a person who usually feels like quite motivated at the start of things, and then that motivation will like die away. It's like a lot of the time, like in school, it would be like, okay, I don't study enough. Let me just spend instead of like developing like a healthy study habit, let me just study for like 6-8 hours tonight after not studying for like 6 months.
Dang.
And then not like,
That would work really well.
yeah. And then the next
Super
day
well.
being like, bro, why am I so tired? And why can't I listen to anything? And then like, I mean, let's talk about like for church volunteering, because I've done like a lot of that.
Just a little bit.
There was
Smidge.
I remember there being a part where I was like in like 4 like different like ministries at like a time. I remember I was serving in kids church, I was serving in production, I think I was serving in like band or like choir at that point or something, and then I was doing something else as well. And so it was like every single Sunday I was like doing something, and I never took any time to actually like read the Bible or like listen to a sermon or like sing worship.
It's the classic like Christian atheist, right? It's like I'm a Christian in belief, but in practice I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
Because all my time is spent doing stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Did
Did you feel like you ever got to the point of proper burnout where you were like, that's it, I'm done?
I feel like I don't know.
And I understand this is a difficult issue because it's like you're on a church podcast where like you still serve. And I said this on stage a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, they tell me it's fine, but I've said it's too much, right?
Yeah.
You still serve, I would say 90% of Sundays, right?
Yeah, I think about 90%. I think, see, church burnout is like a weird one because you could like not have any, and I've experienced like work burnout as well, but like you could have like no work burnout. So like Monday to Friday, like you're chilling.
You're feeling great.
And then it gets to Sunday and then you're like, man, like I don't want to wake up at like 7 o'clock and like go to
I don't
like,
want to do it. Yeah,
like go to church today. And I feel like that's the weird thing about like Sunday burnout is that it turns, or like church burnout is that it turns that like day or like those couple of days that you spend like at church from something that is refreshing to something that then becomes like draining. I feel like it's gotten better as my like spiritual life has like improved.
Interesting.
So it's like I believe that you can still volunteer a lot or like 90% of the time, but you have to realize that you can't do the refreshing and do the volunteering at the same time.
Ooh,
Like
Yeah, that's
very good.
if I'm doing like volunteering on a Sunday, I need to make sure that I at least spend like a couple of hours during the week or like a day or a couple of days during the week, like reading God's word, listening to worship songs or whatever that might be for me. Like I think that it is a trap to think that you can do both all on one day. And I think that's something that I learned from seeing. You see it a lot in like people that have been going to church for a long time and serving for a long time. I mean, let's talk about like obviously like pastors, but like you see like Hulda, Lara, like very active like faith lives like outside of church. So it's like when they come to church, it's almost like the volunteering and the stuff that they do is like the end point for what has been happening throughout the whole week. It's like they've had their cup filled up throughout the whole week and they're going to dribble a bit out on Sunday. But that's because they've been filling it up all week.
Ooh,
That's good.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. That's great church burnout summary.
Yeah,
That's
but
good.
No,
No,
that's
I feel
great,
good.
man. Come on.
yeah.
I feel like my experience is similar. I feel like my early 20s, I got to a point where I just was like angry at everybody. And then someone just said it to me like one day. They're like, why are you angry? You did this to yourself. And you're like, yeah, good point. Like, I kept signing up for stuff and then I kept not doing anything to fill my soul. And now I'm angry at everyone else. It's like, nah, it's all on me. Like, yeah. And I think like, I gotta be careful what I say here. I think sometimes churches can take advantage of people because people are like yes people and they want to be generous, and then they go, oh, you should do this and you should do this and you should do that, and then suddenly you are on 5 teams.
Yeah.
I think that's not okay.
Yeah.
I think when it's self-induced,
Yes.
I have compassion, journey with you, but in my head I'm like, it's kind of your fault.
I think there's like a balance. Like there's got to be like ownership from the people that are like leading the other people, and then there's got to be like some personal ownership as well. Like it's not on one group or the other.
Yeah.
It's on like shared ownership between both parties.
Yeah. And I think like you look at the life of Jesus, right? He did more in 3 years than any other human being has done in the history of their life. And his common practice, we talk about this in young adults all the time, his common practice is withdrew and prayed.
Yeah.
Withdrew and prayed. Withdrew and prayed. In fact, probably for the last year or so, I have been putting a challenge to you to go and take 8 hours, right? Have you guys done it yet?
No.
Nah. Yeah.
What about you, Bri? When you hear burnout, what kind of stuff?
I think that there are so many different types of burnout as well. We've just talked about church burnout, but there's a lot of emotional burnout as well, especially I would assume as a pastor, but in support work, it's really important to recognize when you are burnt out, because going off your analogy, you can't keep filling someone else's cup from your own empty cup. And if you try to, it just doesn't end well for either party. And you start to form a little bit of resentment towards your job or towards the person that you're trying to support. And that's not just with support work, that's with anyone. If you've got a friend or family member who you're constantly trying to support emotionally, you also need to remember that you need to support yourself. You need to put on your own oxygen mask before you can put on others. But yeah, I also think there's work burnout, there's friend burnout. Sometimes, friendships just get a little bit too much. You need to take a step back and reevaluate. But I think as a whole, burnout, you need to be able to recognize it, and you need to be able to recognize for you how to fix burnout. Like for me, I really enjoy hanging out with friends and going out and being social, whereas Mark just needs that downtime to just like refill his cup.
Yeah. 100%. And kind of on like church and work burnout, you have that in your job kind of combined now, right? So do you feel like that's like, and I feel like a lot of people like on the Rocks team, like they do like so much, like how does that work? How do you have church and work together in terms of burnout?
I think it's a very complex question, and I probably am going to give a half-baked answer because I haven't fully thought it through. I would say burnout happens because effectively you run out of energy, right? Yeah. So I think that it's a larger cultural issue and a larger biblical narrative. So in the biblical narrative from Genesis to Revelation, you have a constant balance of work and rest. What I mean by this is God works and God rests, and then instructs humanity to do the same. In Exodus, for example, they get given the commandments, and like God doubles down on the Sabbath so hard. Like he is like, this is a commandment, like 10 commandments, like don't murder, don't steal, take a freaking day off. And he literally doubles down. He's like, do not profane the Sabbath with more work. Take the time off. So I think there's the biblical rhythm. Then there's the cultural narrative that we're in right now, which we've kind of alluded to, which is like hustle culture, get it done, change the world by 25, all that stuff. What I think has actually happened quite slyly in terms of our larger culture is the removal of Sunday as a protected day. Yeah. So I remember when I was a kid, nothing was open on Sundays. Literally, I still remember like the Saturday afternoon, like 4:30 p.m., suddenly mum or dad would be like, oh my gosh, we don't have, and then like, oh, we don't want to go to the shops because it'll be so busy because everyone was like, the shops are not open tomorrow. So we had like an almost communal Sabbath by law that was like everyone stops on Sundays. We now don't have that anymore, right? So our culture has kind of gone flat stick on the pedal because now everything is 7 days a week. So we've got this weird now juxtaposition of biblical narrative that says this is the most important thing. You must not profane the Sabbath. But then we've got this cultural narrative that says every day is the same as any other day. Why do we have distinctions? I frame all of that to say for my own self, I am very blessed in that when we were living in Atlanta, someone sat me down and was like, you need to learn how to Sabbath. So I tried really hard when we were in Atlanta to kind of take Friday, Saturday as like a Sabbath period. So I kind of learnt the concept and the habit pre-kids and pre-being pastor. Since having kids, like Sabbath is nigh on impossible. The concept of like 24-hour rest period with young children is like, love my kids, but it's not restful when you're like toilet training or you're like trying to play sandpit or like this kid gets sand thrown in his eyes or whatever, you know, like, so I still think the rhythm is basically like, I got to try and fit a rest period in my week. I try to take a day a month to like go off and pray. I haven't done that yet this year, and it's now the end of March, so that's not looking healthy. But I think it is hard, but that's kind of also the role, like in the sense of like, I think when you're in ministry, and I know this is controversial because people don't like hearing this, but like when you're in ministry, it is beyond a 9-to-5 job. Like at the end of the day, like if someone calls and says, hey, I need help, I could say, sorry, man, I don't take calls after 5 p.m. And to some people, I might say that. And in some seasons, I might say that. But at the end of the day, that's kind of comes with the territory, which is for us why it was such a hard thing for us to agree that I would go into ministry, because we knew it was a family commitment and we knew it wasn't just as simple as Alice says changing jobs. It's like, no, we're going to be opening our home every Monday. Every Monday, there's going to be people in our house. Our kids are going to understand that this is who we are. This is what we do. It is not convenient. You know, it's kind of chaotic. It's like, but it's beautiful and it's joyful and it's amazing. And I think that would not be possible if I didn't have the family support, and I don't think it would be possible if I didn't have probably the spiritual disciplines that I have, in the sense that I really prioritize prayer, really prioritize silence, really prioritize Bible study. And that kind of is the cup getting filled back up. That was a very long answer.
No, it's good. It's good stuff. 100%. You need to have like that, whether it's like family, friends, around to support that as well. Because I feel like it does become harder when you're married and have kids.
And I think it can become an idol as well, right? Like Monday night is a prime example of like, no, I need the young adults to think I'm smart. Like, well, my kid doesn't like me.
Yeah.
But some random from Baldivis thinks I'm pretty all right that I see for 2 hours a week. You know, it's like, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
Snacks are always good though.
Snacks are always...
are banging.
Let's be honest. Do you feel like we've stepped it up a bit this year?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Those noodles the other night,
Did.
so
right?
good.
I'm gonna start skipping afternoon tea.
Come on, baby.
Yeah.
Purely on that.
Yeah.
Were those cupcakes the ones from Sunday?
They were, yeah.
Yeah, they were still good though.
They were still good?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts on this broad topic, mental health, anxiety, depression, and faith?
I think it's just important to have a good support system, whether you're a Christian or not. Having a good support system is very important. And, you know, as Christians, lean into it, lean into your small group. Don't be afraid to think, oh, if I tell people about my anxious week during small group, they're all going to think differently of me. They might even come to you and say, you know, I struggle with that as well, but this verse really helped me, or, you know, I say this specific prayer that really helps me, or just remember that, you know, you might not be feeling like it, but God is there with you. So I think it's just really important to lean on other people if you need to. You don't have to do it. I mean, you're not doing it alone because God is with you. Even if you don't have a small group, if you don't feel like you have a good support network at home, you've got that person who's always in your corner. You've got God always by your side that can help you.
Very good.
100%. And I think like another good thing is like, don't feel like you can't find things like to help alongside like God and prayer, like therapy and medication.
Very
like
good.
has been put on this earth to help you through that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that you want to like solely rely on that. I think that obviously like Jesus and like spiritual like renewal is going to help as well. But like use and find something that works specifically for you. Just because it worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. For some people, meds and therapy is awesome. For some people, it doesn't work as well. Just like don't stop trying. Like don't give up and really just lean in and journey with God for what works.
Yeah. And I do reckon that the community thing is very important. I think knowing that you've got a group of people that are in your corner, and you can confess it and it can be out there and you're not going to get judged or like excommunicated for it, I think is really important. Because then it normalizes the conversation and it means that stuff doesn't just fester and then suddenly it's like, whoa, where did that come from? It's like, oh, it's been there.
Yeah.
But I was worried that if I said it, you'd hate me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for being on the pod, guys. It's been a great conversation.
Nice.
I've
Thanks for
loved
having
it.
us.
Absolutely loved it.
Mate, we've been chilling.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
it.
very
End of
much.
episode 5. We'll see you guys next week for episode 6.